Normally when coming into one of these videos, I have an idea of what I'm going to cover. And it's usually the draft and then a team fight or the entire game. And today I want to cover this one play that I found in this game that realistically defined how this game was played. And considering these two teams are currently sitting in playoff place position and more than likely will be a round one matchup between these two teams, I figured we should cover what makes this game very interesting and why people consider this to be a very close matchup. Nonetheless, I'm izlogic.business. DJ, spin the track as we cover EG versus FlyQuest. So let's start this off with the bans, the first 6 to be exact. We see Ori, TF, Azir, Karma, LeBlanc, and Olaf all hitting the bench in that order. Ori makes a lot of sense, blind pickable mid, and a lot of blind pickable mids are put on the bench here by both teams, as TF, strong roam game, heavy mid laner, first ban from FlyQuest. Azir, strong mid laner who scales probably the heaviest in the game for mid, bar say an AP cog, and gets put on the bench. And LeBlanc, the last ban, mid laner that has a lot of burst, makes a lot of sense for it to hit the bench. That does leave open for the mid lane a Corkis, the Zoes, and the Syndras for teams to realistically get their hands on. And you probably expect here a first pick from EG towards the mid lane, considering the fact that they've literally used all 3 of their bans on AP mid laners. They want to kind of force FlyQuest onto, say, a Zoe, or maybe even a Corki at this point in the game. As for the other bans, the Karma and the Olaf from FlyQuest, Olaf makes a lot of sense for Svenskeren, because Sven is very good on this champion. It also negates a lot of CC, and FlyQuest, if realistically, are going to trade the mid laners here. They're going to let EG get first dibs on the most powerful mid laner. It's better to limit the actual jungle pool so that they can essentially stop a snowball mid and essentially enable them to actually get a winning mid lane matchup for themselves. So I like that actual adaptation to how EG banned all of the mid laners here from FlyQuest. First round of picks now, and EG do what I thought they would do in locking in their mid lane pick here, and they go for the very strong Syndra. She obviously does technically provide a bit of a flex, but due to how EG have banned, it's more than certainly gonna go towards the mid lane and limit essentially the strong AP champions that FlyQuest can realistically put in the mid lane there. And as such, FlyQuest essentially drop the priority on their mid lane pick because they don't realistically need to pick it in this first phase, and could look to pick it maybe in the second phase, if not at the end of this first phase as their third pick. And they instead go for the Set, which secures a strong jungle matchup. Obviously, if the Olaf was available, it essentially would have stopped, say, the Showstopper ultimate from Set landing onto the jungler, whom essentially FlyQuest is saying, we want to control objectives with this team comp. And as such, the Set can now technically suplex out of any Baron pit or any Dragon pit the enemy jungler and get a easy secure on the Drake. So FlyQuest are getting an advantage jungle matchup for themselves, as well as locking in their main choice of ADC for Wild Turtle in the Ashe, who as a whole is a very strong champion, does require something alongside it to either provide a lot more poke or maybe even some repositioning, because Ashe's kit is very immobile, and as such she does rely on other champions to give her some peel and or give her some more lockdown onto the enemy team so that she can actually basically land a free arrow or use the arrow to lock someone up, and then using the support's abilities to essentially secure the kill. And that is a hard thing to actually execute against, and as such, the Ezreal, the counter pick from EG comes through. It's a safe ADC in the current meta, the top ADC I would say in most regions at the moment, as you've got a lot of poke, you can harass lanes, Arcane Shift is a free flash, and you're essentially able to just threaten team fights with this champion by poking out enemies. And your FlyQuest are saying, look, we want to control objectives with this team comp, but Ezreal can just land in a lot of harassment into tight chokeholds in the map and just poke you out, so you don't get the chance to keep in them objectives and control them that way. Now, interestingly, we are going to see a very unique top lane lock-in here due to the fact that there's a Syndra on the board and an Ezreal. This is going to be the rumble in the top lane for Huni, something that in previous seasons he was very known for playing. He was known for his GP and his rumble. It was what people had to ban against Clutch when he was on that roster. You used to see 2 target bans towards topside, and then anything else Huni whipped out, it usually wasn't that strong. He didn't play too many of the top meta picks at that time, so obviously teams used to focus his bans on his champion pool. And yeah, he's going back to one of his classics. It's very strong. People are very good about it, and it is kind of blind pickable. Granted, it does mean that there is no real like tankiness on this EG side so far from the 3 laners that they've drafted. So you're probably thinking, okay, so the jungle's gonna have to be a tanky frontliner, and probably our support has to be one as well. So we should realistically see bans towards the jungle and the support pool for these 2, for Sven, Scarron and Zazel, and preferably tanks. Now, FlyQuest to end this phase lock in the Thresh. It is probably the most ideal supports for FlyQuest to actually lock in, because it provides a lot of poke. You can essentially lock up a target with your hook. You can then essentially pull them back with your flay, and then box them in with your box ultimate. That essentially also provides with your W, aka the Lantern, a bit of repositioning and also escape tools for this Ashe, and or anyone who gets caught out on FlyQuest side, which is very, very valuable. Plus it will also provide a bit of vision in its actual usage, because you can chuck it into a place, see if there's anything taken. It's essentially a free ward for about 10 seconds that can just be clicked by your team to get them out of a sticky situation. So it's a very strong pick as a whole, and realistically it makes this FlyQuest side look very, very dominant from the first 3 picks of the game. So second ban phase is actually pretty straightforward. EG ban out the Ahri and the Shen, and FlyQuest ban out the Bard and the Graves. So targeting each other's pools here, so far we've actually seen 5 bans towards the mid lane in the entirety of this game so far, and that is huge. That's essentially pretty much all of the first phase bans thrown at bot lane, bar 1. And that is a big thing to note, because they want to try and get Power of Evil on an uncomfortable pick. And I don't like that Ahri ban too much. Yes, it's a strong assassin who can essentially do a lot of work against a Syndra if you can use your ultimate well and dash out of the way of the Scarab can land a charm. But Syndras should realistically be playing quite safe behind a wave, so they won't get hit by a charm unless they're out of position, and even then, she should have her jungler, who should be realistically a good engage / tanky frontliner, to essentially protect her. And speaking of non-tanky non-engage junglers, I don't like that Graves ban by FlyQuest as a whole. Reason being is it doesn't provide much for this FlyQuest side. They've already got 3 big damage dealers locked in, and there's no real frontliner, bar say the Rumble, and even then he's not that much of a frontliner because he just wants to drop a equalizer on you and flamethrower you from a bit of a distance away, and it doesn't mean too much to me, that Graves ban, because Sven Skeren, granted, is a phenomenal Graves player. He's probably one of the best in the LCS. I'd still rather prefer a Volibear ban, and Volley is still a very strong champion in the current meta. He didn't receive any nerfs on 10.15, and he still has a lot of threat. He can jump onto your backline, and considering the fact that there will not be an Azir wall to essentially push him away, and Set is realistically the only one that can take him out of a fight, even then he can just jump back in if he doesn't use his ultimate to get in the first place. And it's very hard for you to actually respect that Graves ban as a whole, especially considering the fact that Volibear is a lot more usable in this matchup than a Graves. As for the other bans, the Bard ban makes a bit of sense. I mean, FlyQuest have got this strong objective taking team so far in terms of how they want to play it, as well as the fact that it also gives EG this sort of advantage in terms of the fact that they can get this strong bot lane matchup with a Bard. Bard provides a lot of lockup and also a lot more flexibility to any team comp because of how easy it is for him to get out of lane and just help his other laners. And considering the other laners are Rumble and Syndra, it's a very easy matchup for him to actually threaten FlyQuest's lineup so far. So I do like that ban. Similarly, the Shen ban from EG onto FlyQuest. Solo is a great player. He plays probably tanks the best out of anyone in the LCS. He's the most consistent top laner in the region, and giving him a champion like Shen, allowing him to essentially get around the map and threaten basically dives and also provide protection from the dives that could come through from EG, it's a good ban as a whole, and it would have provided a bit more of a tankier frontline alongside that Set that could be going into the jungle. So bans overall are okay in this phase. One didn't make too much sense to me, but hey, let's move into the last round of picks where we finally piece together this jigsaw of a draft. So the last 4 picks of the game come down very interestingly. So FlyQuest pick up the Corki here. It is not going to be an Ahri, but it is a champion that does have a repositioning tool that has a lot of harassment that can deal very nicely with the Syndra. You would have expected it to be the Zoe, but it's actually the Corki. And Zoe into Syndra is a losing matchup in most cases. Obviously Zoe is very, very powerful, them Qs do tons of damage, and you also can just get behind the wave that Syndra will be looking to stand behind with your portal forward, and you can just then land an easy sleepy trouble bubble if the Syndra is not playing smart. And as such, it's a very nice pickup here because Corki can melt through waves with the rockets. He also has a spray and pray that's damage that goes through minions onto the enemy team member, and he also gets essentially his own little Rumble ult in his package, which, yes, it does fling him towards the enemy team or away and takes him quite a considerable distance, but it's still the same effect as an equalizer, and that is a huge thing to say considering the fact that Rumble has been drafted already. And if technically EG went with the Corki first pick, it wouldn't have made too much sense because he'd just get immediately countered with an Azir pick from Fly if Azir wasn't banned. But yeah, it could have been telegraphed, and as such, EG just banned the Azir in the first phase and left open a pretty easy matchup for the Corki. As for the next few picks in this phase, we see the Volley and the Naught from EG. They bulk up their front line, which is smart. Naught, a lot of CC. Obviously, you have that depth charge and your dredge line, both of which provide a lot of CC. You have your passive as well. And essentially, this team comp from EG has a lot of engage tools and lockup. And that CC will be vital in essentially getting a good equalizer. If they're able to stun a person in position for long enough, chances are that equalizer is going to burn them to death with a lot of power, and it will essentially kill them in about 2 seconds. Now, the last pick of this game is the Trundle. This actually I like a lot because it fully counters the EG lock-in of the Volley and the Naught by having a Subjugate ultimate that just takes all that HP out of them frontliners, and it's very powerful. Plus the fact it also puts Set into the top lane matchup into a Rumble, which is favourable in my opinion to the Set, because Set will look to punish when the Rumble overheats by going fully in, because overheat from Rumble does take away a lot of the power that Rumble can do. And essentially, when Rumble's flame spittering down a wave, when that goes down onto cooldown, Set can just walk up and then just clear out the wave. It's sort of his counter to how Rumble is played, and it is very, very strong into that matchup in my opinion. And considering the fact that he'll probably go for a Grasp, if not Phase Rush build on the Rumble, it's going to make it, on the Set, it's going to make him very, very strong. And Trundle with a Set is a very good combo because, believe it or not, there's a little bit of a synergy between the Pillar and the Showstopper ultimate from Set. Essentially what you can do is you can ult with the Showstopper, and whichever direction the Set's going, if you put a Pillar in front of it essentially means that you're stopping the distance that the Set's going to ult in, and you're locking up a target, but they're not going as far, meaning that you can essentially keep them in a place a lot more easily. You can chain in more combos, and it makes this a very powerful duo, especially with the fact that they've also got a Corki who can fire in a lot of rockets and put a package down, essentially where Trundle's going to put a Pillar and Set ult is going to land. So it's a good combo as a whole, and I do like this comp out of FlyQuest. My only issue is there's very little magic damage bar the Corki. Even then, Corki pumps out a lot of mixed damage. It's mainly AP because of the package, because of the Phosphorus Bomb and the rockets, but he has a lot of AD damage built into his kit, and that is something that makes this comp for FlyQuest a bit weak in terms of damage. And if the Volibear and the Nautilus build solely armor and then a tad bit of MR to deal with the Corki, it's going to be very hard to kill them, and as such, EG's draft works quite well into Fly's, but Fly have a bit more of an execution in my opinion in terms of how they can play. There's a bit more options for them, whereas EG are locked into this, hey, we need to lock someone up to get a good equalizer combo, essentially for their team comp. And you could say they might have done better instead of the Volibear going with a Jarvan so that they get the actual full combo. And that actually would have made a bit more sense to me as a ban to say the Jarvan than the Graves ban as a whole. But nonetheless, that doesn't matter now, as we'll load into the game where we're going to be breaking down this one fight, and that's going to be it. Normally, games with gold difference this close don't feel so one-sided, and normally, you would be right. FlyQuest are controlling the objectives through vision and winning vital team fights. EG feel the game is slipping out of their hands, and they decide to clear the pit and start the Baron, looking to force the set to TP and stop the split push. Nautilus lands his CC onto the main AP threat on FlyQuest in the Corki, and the dog pile from EG happens as Rumble ult and the flash Q from the Volibear, and then an arcane shift over the wall from Ezreal kills the Corki off and eliminates him from this fight. This gives Evil Geniuses the numbers advantage, as it's a 4v3 at this point, with Set TPing in. At this point, there's a couple of options for EG to actually do. EG should either look for more kills in this fight, or they should do the smarter option, in my opinion, is reset with that fight win, and then possibly threaten the Baron again as you push the bot wave, because you have TP advantages on your top laner, your mid laner, and your AD carry. And you kind of then force FlyQuest across the map to respond to that, and then you can go threaten the Baron again without that TP on the side of FlyQuest. And that option makes a lot more sense to me than what we actually see, as this would essentially give EG a bit more of a chance in actually winning. But there's one thing that we haven't focused on in this actual team fight, is the actual Baron itself. And for the next few points I'm going to be bringing through here as we keep going through this team fight, it relates a lot more to the Baron, as Evil Geniuses didn't all fully dogpile in. Yes, Huni dropped his Equalizer ultimate on top of Corki to kill him, but he never jumped over the wall with the rest of his team, and as such, he's still tanking the Baron and keeping it aggroed. And this essentially means that Evil Geniuses are gonna turn back to the Baron and try and burn it down because of the poke threat from the Corki is gone. And this is where the next couple of points come in. If we take a quick look-see at the FlyQuest inventory, they're very low on wards, only having one blue trinket on their ADC, and then the 3 wards from Thresh's support item available to them. And this gives them very little vision options into the pit. And EG notice because there's a control ward for them sat directly on top of Nashor, meaning that FlyQuest will not have any vision of the Baron, and essentially, if EG back away, they're still keeping the Baron low, and FlyQuest don't realistically know that the Baron is still being taken here by EG. But EG all pull to the pit, and there's sort of a little bit of a blockage from Naught, who gets chunked slightly, and then FlyQuest realise they haven't pulled off Baron because of the actual Evil Geniuses member's position, and as such, this is where the vision game kicks in. Here's the thing about control wards. Yes, they stop the vision of actual wards coming through, but what they also do is give a couple of seconds of vision to FlyQuest every time they place a new ward, and FlyQuest can essentially use that to track the Baron's health and then choose to engage, thus making this Baron still technically a 50-50 thanks to both junglers being alive with Smite. Now, this isn't the flashiest of steals, if you pardon the pun, as it comes down to 2 Smites, Trundle and a Volibear, essentially is this play. And Trundle flashes into the pit as the Baron hits 1417 HP. Volibear smites the Baron at 1058 HP, dealing 720 smite damage, which is based on his level. At this time he's level 12, and along with the auto damage, it drops the the Baron down to 45 HP. A narrow miss on that smite executing the Baron completely means that there's a chance for the steal from FlyQuest. And Torin on that Trundle smites the Baron and steals it literally on 35 HP. That is huge. Yes, he gives up his life, but you've still technically got 3 Baron buffs to play around. And with a jungler being dead, it does technically mean the next Drake, which would be Soul for FlyQuest, is a bit more up in the air. But with Baron buffs on the FlyQuest side, and they've already at the start of play set up the thing that they're going to split push, you already can tell that this Baron buff is going to deal a lot of damage to Evil Genius's base and definitely take the game out of their hands. With that all said and done, it's time to end this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new around here if you want to, and I will see you guys tomorrow for a predictions video. Yay. Peace out.